Hello, Photography Nation. I am super excited to start this 3-part series we are about to go into. Who doesn't want better color in your photographs? Everybody does. But there is a secret to getting better color. And today we're about to go through it. So get ready. Let's get started with the show. You're listening to the Master Your Lens podcast, episode 170.
Hey, John Lee Dumas here, the founder and host of EO Fire, and welcome to the Master Your Lens podcast, the photography podcast dedicated to sharing inspiring stories, technical tips, and powerful secrets to help you become a better photographer. And now, your host, Matthew Jordan Smith.
Hello, Photography Nation. Maybe you can tell I'm fairly excited today because we are about to start a 3-part series where we go deep into getting the best color you've ever gotten out of your pictures. Today will be part 1. When it comes to your color in your images, you can't expect the camera to do everything for you. You can't expect programs to do everything for you as well. It's kind of funny, but today we live in that kind of world where we expect devices to do everything for us. And I get it. I've fallen into that trap myself. I depend on my navigation from Google Maps to take me everywhere, even here in Japan. And for those who may be the first time listening, yes, I live in Tokyo. But my Japanese, Nihongo, is not so great yet. But I've got to get around, and it's no problem because of Google Maps. I can plug in anything, anywhere I want to go in Japan, and Google Maps will take me there. I don't have to think about it. And while that's great, it's not really teaching me how to get there. It's showing me how to get there. There is a big difference. I remember, and for those of you who are old enough, you remember also, the days before Google Maps or any type of device that would guide you to get somewhere. If you had an old-fashioned map, you could look at the map, mentally put that map in your mind, and you learned how to get places where you didn't have to depend on that map anymore. You learned. You were showed the way. You learned how to read the signs, and you learned how to get to your destination. And after a while, you didn't even need the map. Remember those days? Well, now we live in a world where we depend on the device, whatever that device is, to do all the heavy lifting for us. And because of that, you depend on those things and you never really learn the way you should how to do it yourself. Today, we are going to start turning things around so you can learn how to be in control of every aspect of your images, starting, yes, with your color. Now, I know this is a podcast and you can't see what I'm talking about, but for those of you who want to see, I am going to teach this in 3 lessons. These classes will be online on a specific date. So if you're interested, please sign up. You can listen to the podcast and then see it and walk through it with me in person. Each class will be about 2 hours long, so much longer than today's podcast. But you're going to get all the goods, and we'll break them down in 3 different classes. If you are interested, please go and sign up now at the Creative Photo Academy. So let's dive into this. The first part of this is going to be talking about the best lighting tools to maximize your color. I will teach this on September 15th. This will be live, and you've got to sign up again if you want to get all the goods in person and see what I'm talking about. But let's dive in today. Today, we're talking about those best lighting tools for maximizing your color. Let's start with one tool that can very easily help you get the best color. A lot of photographers have this tool but may not use it. I'm talking about a color checker passport. So let's talk about what happens when you do not use this tool. First of all, you're going to get what we call standard Adobe Color. If you've never used a Color Checker Passport, that's what you get, Adobe Standard. And that might look just great to you. It does for a lot of people. Until you see what it looks like when you use that Color Checker Passport. It is a game changer. You've heard that saying, you don't know what you don't know. And in this case, you don't know the color you are missing when you're not using this tool. Now, I get it may be intimidating for some people to use it or confusing for some people to use it, but I'm going to take all that confusion out. It's a great tool to use, and I highly suggest using this when you shoot. Now, when I'm doing a shoot, the first thing I'm going to do is use a Color Checker Passport. I'll use it when I shoot my stills. There's a version for photography. I'll use that version for taking pictures. But today, I shoot a lot of video as well, behind the scenes, but I'm shooting video behind the scenes. And when I'm doing that, I also use a video Color Checker Passport. I do want to let you know right now, you can't use one for both. You must use a Color Checker, the standard one, for your pictures. And for video, you must use a video Color Checker Passport. They are two different tools, and I use both. Recently, I've got a friend who's a videographer. Very, very good, as a matter of fact. But he had never used a Color Checker Passport before. So I let him borrow mine for video. And he got back to me right away and said, Matthew, this thing's amazing. And it's funny because this guy doesn't really say stuff like that. But he did about the Color Checker Passport, which kind of shocked me. You see, that's how good it is. It does the heavy lifting for you. Before the days of digital, you bought film based on the color you want. Does anybody remember that? Even some magazines liked one film over another based on the color or the clarity that it would give. Some magazines loved the Fuji stock. Some loved Kodak. Some loved different types of Kodak film. It's funny thinking about that now, because once upon a time, that was a very big part of my life, even to the point of shooting color negative film or chrome. I'm curious, how many of you have ever seen Kodachrome 25? Whew. That was amazing film. But we're not talking about film right now. We're talking about how to get the best color out of your photography by using the right tools. And one of those tools is definitely a Color Checker Passport. Once upon a time, that tool only worked with Adobe products like Lightroom and Photoshop. Now, thank God, they work with other programs like ON1, my program of choice. It also works with Capture One. So now, the most popular tools out there, it works with, and that's a great thing. The really cool thing about having a Color Checker Passport is it takes into account where you are shooting and the elements that are surrounding you and affecting your color. That's right, the room where you are shooting. Maybe you're shooting outside in a park where there's a lot of green trees and you're under a tree, so you're in shade. It takes that into account. Maybe you're shooting in a studio with wood floors. You know, those deep golden wood floors. They too have an effect on your color. The Color Checker Passport takes that into account. Maybe you're shooting on a beach where there's a lot of sand and blue sky. You get the idea. It takes all this into account and helps you get the best color in that situation. When you're not using that tool, you got it. You are getting standard color, standard Adobe color. It also helps you in terms of the camera that you have, the lens that you have, and it helps you make a profile specific for your tools, what you're using right now. Maybe somebody uses a Nikon. Maybe another person uses a Canon, another a Sony, another a Fuji. Whatever camera you use, it doesn't matter. This color checker passport is going to help you get the best color for your camera with your lens in the space where you are shooting or the location where you are shooting. I know we all want to take pictures and get right to it, but before you start shooting, make sure you do this. Shoot a close-up image of your color checker passport, because I want to make sure you get a good picture that you can use in your image. If you're doing a landscape and you put your color checker passport on a rock and shoot a landscape with it and you barely see the color checker passport, it may not help you in that way. You need to get closer to your color checker passport and shoot in that environment so you can almost fill the frame with that color checker passport. Now, I do a lot of portraits, as you probably know, and I'll have my subject hold that color checker for my first image. That's what I like to do. But sometimes I will forget, and I remember either in the middle of shooting or at the end of shooting. It doesn't matter when you take a picture of it, as long as you have it in that location. So just make sure you use it at some point during your shoot. It's a good idea, however, to start at the very beginning. And when you are taking your picture of the color checker passport, get close as you can with your lens, and take a picture of your color checker passport. I also always shoot the gray card. When you open up your color checker passport, it also has a side that is a gray card. I shoot both. Is that overkill? Maybe, but that's what I do, and it has never led me wrong. Let's go into another tool that you use to get better color, and that's the program that you use. Each one's different, whether it's Lightroom or Photoshop or On1 or Capture One. Each one is a little different. Find the program that you use and learn how to use it for that program. I must say, there is nothing like getting a profile made for your camera. And I'll say this as well. So let's say you're shooting Nikon and you have 3 different bodies. Maybe you have a D850, then you have a Z6 or a Z7. Even though all those bodies are Nikon bodies, you still need a profile for each different camera. So get in the habit of using it all the time. Once you do, you're going to be hooked. All right, let's go a little deeper down this rabbit hole of color and the tools you need to get the best color. If you've been following me for a while, you already know that I am a meter guy. I like to know exactly in terms of my light readings. So one of the tools that I live by is my light meter. When it comes to color, a lot of people don't think about exposure being a part of that, but it is. And it can't be overlooked. If you're going by your histograms, if you're going by the back of your camera and judging your exposure and not thinking of color, you're doing yourself a disservice. If I have a subject who's wearing a bright color, I know I can get brighter, more saturated color by making sure my light is slightly less in that area. So I'll read the light on my subject's face. I'll read all over their body as well to find out where the light starts to fall off, because as that light falls off, I'll get more saturated color in those areas. Now that makes sense when you think about it. Of course, if you have an overexposed image, the color is kind of washed out. If you have it at a correct exposure, you're going to have a stronger color. If you want it deeper, you can slightly underexpose it. Now, I know that may not make sense until you see it, but trust me, this really works in terms of getting the best color out of your images. I'm going to show you how to do this during the live class. Now let's move on to another tool that makes a big difference. A color meter. Now this can feel intimidating for a lot of photographers because most photographers today don't use a color meter. However, I want to talk about your light. Your light, as you know, affects your color. And I'm sure you know there are a lot of different types of lights out there, and they range from the very inexpensive to the very expensive. And some people have no idea why they pay so much for a certain type of light. What do they get? Because if you're buying a strobe, that strobe might look the same as any other strobe, but one could be $2,000 or more. Another one could be a couple of $100. And you wonder, what is the big difference? Well, let's talk about that thing that you don't see. The thing that you can't see. That light's ability to render color. This is huge. When you use a color meter, you get to read the CRI, the color rendering index. This tells you about your light's ability to give you the full range of color, something you can't see with the naked eye. For many people, getting dull color may not be your fault. It may be the fault of your lights, but you can change and correct all of that by simply using that color meter. Yes, that tool is an expensive one. In terms of cost, a color meter is around $1,500, but it is a tool that will help you in many, many ways. Now, I know all the tools we've talked about today are things that you need to see, and see them at work. If you are not happy with the color in your pictures, come out and join me. On September 15th, that will be the first class. It will be live, and it will be at thecreativephotoacademy.com. I would love it if you just join me for the entire month of September because there's a lot going on. The Portrait Masters Workshop takes place on September 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. And that is going to be absolutely amazing. There are tons of speakers and tons of classes. And this year, I'm giving a class. And this one you absolutely want to check out because I'm going to take you through an entire shoot from beginning to end. That means you're going to see me set up. You're going to see me adjust the lights, measure the lights, bring my model in. You are going to see every frame as I shoot, step by step, from the very beginning until the very end. And then you're going to see my final selects. This is going to be cool. So make sure you are there at the Portrait Masters this year, September 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. A lot of great classes, a lot of great speakers. Now, this is something I've never done before like this. You get to see an entire shoot and see exactly how I set up, shoot, and go through it step by step. You definitely want to be there for this. So if you have not signed up yet for the Portrait Masters, please go and do so now. That again is September 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. Then on September 24th, I'll be back at the Creative Photo Academy doing part 2 of how to get the best color in your photographs. Then on September 29th, I'll wrap up that 3-part series. So yes, in September, you have a lot of opportunities to come and learn and grow as a photographer. September is really an amazing month altogether. If you are in Japan, come to Kyoto for my exhibit that opens up on September 1st. September 1st through the 13th, I will debut a brand new art form. Yes, I know I'm holding back on that information, but stay with me. More information is coming up very, very soon as I debut this brand new art form at the Kyoto Museum of Photography. This is actually a very big deal. And I know we can't travel around the world like we want to right now, but this is just the debut. As soon as we are free to travel, this work will go all over the world. But for right now, it is very important that this work debuts in Japan, and specifically debuts in Kyoto. Again, I'll share why that is important very, very soon. All right, Photography Nation, you've learned a lot today about color, about how to get the best color, and the right tools to help you get there. Join me next week as we dive into part 2 and part 3 of how to get the maximum color, the best color, out of your images. Until then, Photography Nation, thank you for your time. It's great being here every single week to talk about something that I love, the joy of photography. Stay safe, wash your hands, and come back here again next week to the Master Your Lens podcast. Always dream big. Bye for now.